This is a CBC podcast.
Well, we are 6 weeks out from Election Day for municipalities across New Brunswick, and the race for St. John City Council has started to take shape. Lots of people filing their papers, getting their names in. We already know that we are going to have a new mayor, Don Darling, not reoffering. And this week we're going to be speaking with the candidates so far who have announced that they're running for mayor. Well, the first to do so was a familiar name to municipal politics. Donna Reardon is actually wrapping up her second term as a councillor for Ward 3. She was first elected back in 2012. She's a trained dietitian, and she administers her husband's medical practice in addition to her work at City Hall. As it stands, she is the only member of the current council who is seeking the mayor's seat. Donna Reardon joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning, Julia.
Why did you decide to run for mayor?
Julia, I have made, I think, a significant investment in St. John in 9 years. I've done a lot of work. I've gotten myself on a lot of committees. So I feel like when Don said he wasn't going to reoffer, I thought, okay, is it time for me to now make that leap? I've got the background, I've got the experience, and I did send an email out to all of my council colleagues and say, listen, I need a little bit of feedback. This is what I'm thinking, and everybody was like, you go for it. So here I am.
What do you bring to the role?
Well, I bring that 9 years of experience, and I feel like I know the ropes. I feel like I understand the priorities. I feel like, we've made a lot of very difficult moves on the chessboard of St. John's success, with a structural budget, with putting in policies, etc. So I feel like I have all of that background, and that's what I'm going to bring that going forward.
See, that's good if people like what this council did, right? But it's a double-edged sword because some of those decisions have been polarizing too, like the financial sustainability planning resulted in cuts in some areas. Like, how do you think that the actions of this council are going to affect your chances of success as a candidate?
Well, I guess I'm trying to look at the big picture. So what do you have to do now? What foundation is required for you to lay to get to where you need to go? And that's the vision, and that's where we want to go. And we need a lot of partners to do it. But at the end of the day, if you don't lay a proper foundation, I don't see how you can build on that. So that's where I am with it all. I know it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy for us. It hasn't been easy for that team to go forward making some of these decisions. So how do we now action what we have in place? That's where I am.
I've been seeing you doing a lot of walking lately. What's up with that, Donna?
Well, right now it's sort of like I don't really know how people would receive me ringing your doorbell with COVID, et cetera. I know I can do it according to the COVID plan that's been in Elections NB. I have to sanitize, ring the doorbell, step back so many feet, et cetera. So rather than do that, I thought I would just get into a grassroots program of just walking as much of the city over the next 6 weeks as I can do to see the whole city on foot. It's a different view, as you well know, than from a vehicle.
Sure is. So what have you been seeing when you've been out there walking around?
Well, I've been through parts of Forest Hill, Champlain Heights, up through Heatherway. We started with East, walked the res, the little reservoir park. So it's been great. I've met a lot of people. We've got our signs with us. We've had a lot of thumbs up, a few beeps, so it's been good. It's been good. It's nice to see, I guess where I've been so far is more tailored communities that are structured, to be livable with cul-de-sacs and more of a grid and sidewalks on one side. So it's been good to see it.
Roads have always been a big thing for you. Would you say that's the biggest issue facing the city, or are there other issues that you have your eye on right now?
No. Listen, growth, prosperity, and integrating that with quality of life is one of the biggest things for us. Your financial sustainability. Roads are big for St. John because St. John is big, and when you have over 300 square kilometers, and you know that you have 600 kilometers of roads, which are when you're plowing 1,200 lane kilometers, it's a lot of road, and roads are expensive. We just had the 39 million combined monies that we got from the province and the feds to do some of the infrastructure in the uptown area that have, infrastructure going back to 1865, 1866. So, when you start to rebuild roads, it's very expensive. Surfacing them with asphalt is expensive as well. So how do you work roads into your plan, because we always look at everything and we say, what's the return on the investment of that if we spend that kind of money? We always say that. We don't say it about roads, but I understand that roads are necessary. We do need them, but how do we get the biggest bang for our buck out of our roads?
I want to go back to the first thing you said, because they're big terms like growth, prosperity. I suspect we're going to hear those from every single one of the candidates.
You will.
Let's drill down on that. Like, how would you grow the city?
How would I grow the city? One is partnerships. So I need to meet with, and first you need a strong team. You need a team that's going to read the documentation that they're given and make those tough decisions. And so, I feel like I've come from two teams that have done that. They've been prepared to put the time in and put the homework in. And people will often say to me, what did you accomplish in your term? I would say what I accomplished in my term, everything we did as a team. And that team pulled together. So I wouldn't pull out one person or another and said, so-and-so did this or that. We worked as a team. That's integral to being successful. So where do we go from here? We look at all the partnerships. And I say to everyone, how can we as a team be part of your success?
That's interesting. So what do you see the role as for the mayor on that team?
The role for the mayor, I think the mayor needs to pull the team together. And I think the mayor should say to all of the team, these are my expectations as a mayor. What are your expectations as a councillor? Here is and we're working on this right now, the long-term strategic plan for the city. How do you see yourself fitting into this over the next 4 years to drive that success and to drive that long-term strategic plan? And we need to get everyone on board. We need to ask all your councillors that. You need to ask all of your staff that. That's where I think we should be going.
What about the prosperity piece? Like, how would you increase revenues for the city?
Well, I think once you're working, everybody wants success from talking to different groups already. Everybody wants to know, how can we grow and how can they help the city to grow? So I like to think of it as a hub of a wheel, and all of those spokes strengthen us. So, our close neighbors within the greater St. John area are huge for our success. We need to make sure that we group them in with our success, and how do we communicate with that group, and how do we build a bigger team there? We need to look at the university. We look at the federal government. We have the port. The port lives with us. That's federal property. There's lots of federal properties in St. John. The province is a huge partner for us. The province dictates how we can move forward with a lot of the legislation. So it's aligning with some of those visions as well, and just going after them.
Any other issues that you would identify as top priorities for you if elected?
Well, there's for me, and I've talked about this forever, it's that active transportation, vibrant, safe, livable city. So I want to see growth, but I need to see it integrated with quality of life. So I want to make sure that that's happening, because growth is great, but you need to make sure that there's lots of good reasons why people want to live in St. John. And that's, what are the amenities are you providing to make a life for people? And the other thing, of course, is financial stability. And how do you continue on that sustainable plan that we've already built the foundation for? So it's maintaining that. I mean, it's maintaining that lockstep. It hasn't been easy. If we want to go forward and we want to be successful, based on my 9 years of watching this, I think we've turned a significant corner. I want to keep on that road.
I mean, some people would say, we haven't turned a corner with things like poverty rates, for example, which still are stubbornly high here. How would you address that, or can City Hall address that in a way that's meaningful to people, that they notice a difference on the ground?
Well, I think, the poverty rates, I guess Rome wasn't built in a day at the end of the day. Everything is being worked on. St. John actually gave St. John Nonprofit Housing that piece of land that the Wellington will be built on. That's a huge opportunity for the city. It's a huge opportunity for affordable housing. So I think there's lots of things that a city can do. The citizens are ours. We can advocate on their behalf. We can take some actions. I mean, Moncton talked about the density bonusing, and so there's lots of things that can be done. The land bank, amalgamating land. I'd love to go after the province and find out what's the deal on expropriation. We have these vacant, dilapidated, risk-bringing buildings, in the city. If we go after those, can we get those and build a land bank with them? and put pieces together for affordable housing or for any development. So how do we do that? So there's lots of things that can be done, I think. I mean, it's like we can't do it all overnight, but we had to get our own house in order and move to that structural budget before we can go forward. We're there. Now we need the action.
Okay, so we've talked financial sustainability. We talked about affordable housing. I mean, another pillar, another priority that this council set, I believe, in back at the first of the term was arts and culture, right? Like, how can the city better promote that?
Well, the city can, I think there's lots of things that the city can do with arts and culture as well. We have, right now we have a small budget for arts and culture. We try to support artists by giving out grants, et cetera. It's just really focusing on what your citizens want you to focus on at the end of the day to move the city forward. And I think we've seen that has given us a return on our investment. Absolutely. Prior to COVID, some of your arts and culture events really attracted a lot of people. So, I think we're definitely on that road. We just need to make sure that we're adding to it. It's hard when you have such a limited budget and you need to rob Peter sometimes in order to pay Paul, but you really need to look at what brings people to your city and what documentation do you have that states that people want this, arts and culture. Absolutely. That's the kind of city people want to live in. I say no one checks your road, pavement index and say, oh, let's see now, their pavement index is X and this one's Y. I think I'll move there. They look at a more holistic city of what can you provide for the time off when they're not working, and how would they integrate that into their life and raising a family, et cetera. And people are taking a look at us now with COVID. So it's very interesting.
COVID keeps coming up. I mean,
COVID keeps coming up.
Unfortunately,
it's a bane and a blessing, as the Newfoundlander said.
Yeah, and a big part of your term is going to have to be devoted to that, to dealing with that, recovering from the pandemic. Just finally, Donna, what do you think we need to consider as we move toward this next phase?
Well, interestingly enough, we started what I guess would be called COVID recovery long before COVID, because we were working on that sustainable budget and looking to cut $10 million out of your budget. So in a lot of ways, we were ahead of that curve when COVID hit. We were already doing that pruning and trimming to get our house in order. And so because we were looking at a much leaner operation, the impacts haven't been as great. Like when we applied for our money for transit, we had to apply on the new figures versus the original figures before COVID, but those were the figures that were required. But we'd already done a lot of trimming just because we had to. So at the end of the day, I feel like we're in a pretty good place with that, and we can go forward now. We just need to get this. We need to get the action on the go here. As you know, we're tearing apart. I shouldn't say tearing apart, but we're looking at all of the agencies, boards, and commissions, going through them all with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that the balance of them is, that they're working. How can we support them, and that they're what the city is requiring right now. So, everything is being looked at. Every stone is being turned over, going forward, and so I think we have definitely turned a corner. From my perspective of being in the trenches, we've turned a corner, a significant one.
Councillor Reardon, thanks for your time this morning.
Always a pleasure.
All right, bye now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
That is Councillor Donna Reardon, running to be Mayor of St. John. We are going to be talking to all of the mayoral candidates that have announced their names so far this week. The deadline's not until April, so they still do have some time to put their names in. But there are 4 so far. We started with Donna Reardon today. We're going to be chatting with Mel Vincent Jr. tomorrow at 7:15. And then Daryl Bastarash is going to join us on Wednesday at the same time.
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.